Love It's Random Life!
Yo, what up, random lifers? So today I got a story for you. Every year when we start getting into the African Middle East unit, I end up telling my story of when I got lost in Egypt. And what a story it is. So the year is 2010. I'm 19 years old. And it's just after my freshman year of college. And when you go to college, you end up doing all kinds of things for the first time. Fortunately, most of my decisions were good decisions. But one of the decisions I made was to go to Egypt. So my university is hosting this trip to Cairo and Alexandria. It's about 10 days long. And I'm thinking this is going to be a great trip. At the time, I wasn't a history major, but that worked out really good. And I signed up to go to Cairo. Well, it was a great trip overall, but the first 24 hours were pretty crazy. So we leave from Atlanta and we fly direct from Atlanta to the Cairo airport. And I get on the plane, and as soon as we get on, it's automatically like craziness is already ensuing. So it's my professor, Dr. Wilson. There are 3 college ladies, and then there are 4 college guys. So in total, there's 8 in our group, and we're going to meet the our local contact in Egypt. So we get on the plane, and my seat is right next to Dr. Wilson. And so I was looking forward to spending some time with him on the airplane, which is, like 12-hour flight over the Atlantic Ocean. And the stewardess comes up, and she talks to Dr. Wilson and says, "Hey, we've accidentally double booked your seat. We have somebody else that's going to sit in your seat, but we have an extra seat in first class." And so he lights up and he's thinking, okay, great, I'm going to go to first class. So unfortunately, I don't get to sit by next to Dr. Wilson. But the great news is that this giant human being gets to sit next to me. Now, on this flight for 12 hours, first of all, I'm on the back row. And if you've never flown before, you know that the seats tilt back. They don't lean back much, but you lean back just enough where you could probably take a nap. The back row doesn't lean back, so you sit vertically, and if you have a 12-hour flight, you sit vertically for 12 hours. Now, on one side of me is a giant human being, and on the other side of me is a giant human being. Both of these guys apparently are Egyptian, and both of these guys apparently are sumo wrestlers, which I didn't know that sumo wrestlers came from Egypt, but apparently these guys did. So not only am I in a seat that's completely vertical for 12 hours, I am like this between 2 giant sumo wrestling Egyptians. And they did not get up but like twice the whole time. So for 12 hours, I'm sitting like this, flying over the Atlantic Ocean, just waiting to get to Cairo. But finally, we get there. So our airplane flies into Cairo and lands. I'm looking out the window. I can tell that we're not in Kansas anymore. And immediately it starts becoming pretty clear that this is not the typical airport that I'm used to here in the United States. So we get out of the airplane, and at this airport they didn't pull up next to the little exit where you go up the covered tube or whatever. They pull us some stairs up next to the airplane. Looks like what you see in movies from the 1950s, and we start exiting down the stairs. And here at this airport in Cairo, Egypt, are all of these armed guards in these white uniforms, and they all have semi-automatic weapons. And I don't know where you live in the United States, but on average, we don't see a lot of people just walking around the streets with automatic weapons. And so they're kind of everywhere. So automatically, I'm pretty nervous about the fact that these guys seem to be everywhere. We look very American. Everybody else looks very Egyptian. And I'm rolling in there with a University of Alabama National Championship t-shirt on. And just trying to blend in a little bit, which is not going well. So we're going through the airport. Everybody's looking at us. We definitely don't fit in, and we just are trying to find our contact that we're meeting when we get outside. Go through so many security points. We get all of our bags, which for some reason, I decided to bring a guitar to Egypt. Now, I did this because I'm dumb, but I thought, hey, in the downtime that I have when I'm in Cairo, I'll just play some guitar. So I have my backpack, I have my giant rolling suitcase, and I have a guitar. And so I've got all this stuff, and then everybody else has the same stuff I have minus the guitar. So we get our luggage. Thank goodness, we found it all. And then we go out front and we try to find our contact. And there's people everywhere. Guys, in Cairo, there's millions upon millions of people. I'm from a suburb of Birmingham, so, I'm not used to being around this many people. But we're basically looking for this guy, and he's holding up a sign, and we go find him. He's a guy from the United States, and he's been living in Cairo for a while, and he's just our contact. Nice guy. And so keep in mind, it's me, 3 other college guys about my age, Dr. Wilson, and then 3 ladies that are about our age too. So we meet this guy. We're shaking hands, talking to him, glad to see us. And then he takes us to his car. He's driving a Ford Focus. Now, for those of you that don't know what a Ford Focus is, it is a tiny little car, and it's not going to hold 8 people. It wouldn't hold 8 people's luggage. So what we do, like the Beverly Hillbillies, we just take a bunch of stuff and start strapping it to the top of his car. And at this point, I'm doing the math, and I realized we're not all going to fit in this car. So what they decide to do is, in the car with him, he's driving, Dr. Wilson's riding shotgun, and then the ladies are in the back seat, and they strap all of their stuff down. So 8 minus 4 is 4. So the 4 of us guys, we're going to ride in a taxi. So the guy pulls me aside. Somehow I become the leader of the guys immediately. He says, listen, we don't have room in the Ford Focus for you guys. I'm going to put you in a taxi, and I'm going to tell the driver to follow us to the hotel where we're staying. And I'm not feeling great about this, but I'm like, if that's what you want to do, that's what we're going to do. So he hands me a bunch of Egyptian money. Never seen it before. Have no idea how much it's worth. Nothing like that. And we get into this taxi with this guy. We strap all of our stuff. Again, looks like the Beverly Hillbillies. And he starts talking with the driver of this taxi in Arabic. I don't speak Arabic. I've been told I look Egyptian, but I don't speak Arabic. So I'm in the front seat next to this driver. The guy that we're working with is outside. He's talking through the window to the driver, and then the other guys are in the back seat. He says, if you guys get lost, tell him Fondo La Meridian. And in Arabic, that means the Meridian Hotel. And immediately I'm like, what do you mean if we get lost? Like, is that a part of the plan? Like, are we expecting this to happen? So Ford Focus is in the front, we're behind. And they start pulling out, and we're following. And I guess I would equate it to pulling out onto a highway. So they're a good bit ahead of us as we're like leaving the airport. We see them turn right out of the airport, and we're coming up on this little guard shack of all those guys with the machine guns. And immediately, a whole little troop of these guys swarm our taxi, right? We're surrounded by these guys in white uniforms, all carrying semi-automatic weapons. And we're freaking out just a little bit. And they all start hollering in Arabic, which we're just assuming they're yelling at us. And they open the door and they pull the driver out. And we're like, what is going on? And they're like dragging him, but they're pulling him against his will. And then they station a bunch of these guards around us like they're guarding the car. And he's just gone. So our contact in the Ford Focus, they've all left. It's me, 3 other college guys. And our car is now surrounded. Our taxi is surrounded by all of these guards. Our driver is missing, and we're just sitting here. Guys, it's hot. This is in the middle of the summer in 2010 in Egypt. It's so hot. This car is like from 1973, and so there's no air conditioning. We're just like dying. And so like 30 minutes go by, and we're just like, where is this guy? What's going on? And we finally make the decision. We're like, we just have to leave this car here and go figure something out. And literally, as we're getting out of the car, we start unstrapping the stuff. They bring the driver back. They let him get in the car. We get back in the car. And he just starts laughing, like really nervously. And then he starts saying something in Arabic. And I'm like, dude, I'm from Alabama. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So he pulls out, and we're on this just giant road that's like, I don't know, the main road of Cairo, Egypt, I guess. And so we're driving. We drive about 2 minutes, and this guy pulls over to the right side, right? And so we're like on the right side of this giant road system, and he's pointing across, right? So like we're on the right, and he's pointing over lanes and lanes of traffic saying, hotel, hotel, hotel. And I see something that says Hampton, right? And I'm like, no, Fondo La Meridian, Fondo La Meridian. He says no, and he's doing this like it's on the other side. And so there's a row of buildings. I can tell that there's several buildings, and I'll turn to the guys. I'm like, well, maybe it's on the other side, and I don't really see a place to cross the median, so maybe he's just expecting us to get out. I'd like to take a moment to say, at 19 years old, The furthest I have ever driven or really been away from my family was like from Birmingham to Mobile. So this is my first time in a taxi. This is my first time in a different major city, basically by myself. These other guys that are with me, same thing. None of us have ever ridden in a taxi. We don't really know what taxi etiquette is. So we're just assuming that this guy's an honest person and he's taking us where we need to be. So we get out of the car, we unstrap all the stuff, we hand him the money, and then he drives off into the sunset. And so here we are standing with all this stuff. Each of us has a backpack, this giant suitcase. I'm standing here with a guitar, and we're like, what do we do now? We have got to cross this road. 4 lanes of traffic going this way, 4 lanes of traffic coming this way. This is like Talladega Super Speedway. If all the cars were all banged up and they were all made in the 70s. I'm going to take this opportunity just to say, in Egypt, there are no rules of the road. They've got lines painted on the road, and they have stoplights and stop signs, but nobody pays attention. There's nobody writing moving violation tickets. You just do whatever you want, and these people are flying. So there's 4 lanes of traffic, a median with a bunch of palm trees in it, and then 4 more lanes, and then the other side of the road. I don't know if you've ever played Frogger, but we're playing Frogger. So literally what happens, there must have been a stoplight down. I don't know, something happened. They slowed down enough. They moved from like 80 miles an hour down to 55. And so me and these other 3 guys, we've got all our stuff. I've got the guitar, and we're like bouncing around playing Frogger. They're just laying on the horns, and we're just trying to get across. We make it to the median. We drop all our stuff. Like we take a little break. We gear up for round 2, and then we sprint across. Somehow we make it across Cairo Super Speedway. And we're over to the other side. And then we kind of gather ourselves a little bit. And there is this guard, but you can tell he's like a different kind of guard. He's like private security. Everything's walled off. Like you can't just walk up to any of these places. And we go up, and I'm like praying, like, okay, maybe this guy understands a little bit. And I say, excuse me. Hey, like I'm trying to find Meridian Hotel, Fondo La Meridian, Fondo La Meridian. And he's just staring at me like this. I'm like, sir, I'm sorry, like I don't speak Arabic. Fondo La Meridian. And he looks up at the building. He looks back down, and he says, man, this is the Hampton. And so we just kind of like fall apart. So this was not the right hotel. The hotel we're looking for is not anywhere near this. So apparently what happened was, this taxi driver ripped us off. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but here's what I think happened. I think the guards were watching us at the airport. They saw the other car leave, and then they took an opportunity to take the driver and say, hey, drop these guys off, take the money, bring it back, and we'll split it with you. I don't know that, but I feel like that's what happened because this guy just dropped us off in the middle of nowhere. So now we're lost in Cairo. Well, we don't know what to do. The only Egyptian money that we have is now gone. It's starting to get late. Let me tell you something. You don't want to be lost in Cairo when the sun's going down. So we have no idea what to do. So we just hang tight for a second. We're trying to come up with a plan. And then out of nowhere, a new taxi driver like slides up, slams on the brakes, and he gets out, and he doesn't speak like perfect English. He speaks kind of broken English, and he's asking, do you need a ride? Do you need a ride? We're like, yeah, we need a ride. Like, look at us. And so we start strapping all our stuff on top, and I'm like, hey, man, Fondo La Meridian. He goes, the Meridian Hotel? Yeah, I know where it is. And he's pointing down the road like he knows exactly where this place is. And so I tell him, I'm like, listen, we lost all our money. I have no Egyptian money, okay, but we have like a little bit of American money. Like, will you take? He's like, yes. And so we get in the car. We're on the other side. So we go down, U-turn, and now we're going back. And the guy's joking around, and he's talking. It's all broken English. Like, you know, I can understand a little bit about what he's saying. He's asking if we like his car. I'm like, yeah, well, if it gets me where I'm going, I like your car. And so the guy's like, money, how much money? How much money? And I'm like, I think I have $10. And the guy's like, no. And he like gets mad. I'm like, oh man, like I've never ridden a taxi. Like I don't know how much taxi money is. And, you know, this car, again, was like all these cars are in the 70s. And so there's no fare. Like, I don't know. And even if there was, it wouldn't be in American currency anyway. So he's getting mad. He's like putting on the brakes like he's about to kick us out of the car. And I turn around like, hey, guys, like how much money do you guys have? And, you know, one of the guys was like, I have $3. The other guy's like, I have 5. Last guy, I got 2. I'm like, okay, so we have 20 American dollars. Okay, we got $20. And I'm like, hey man, like we got $20. And I show him and he's like, oh, okay. Yeah, now he's our friend again. And so he knows he's getting $20. And so we're driving. And then all of a sudden, like I see lit up on the skyline, Meridian Hotel. And I'm like, thank God. So we're finally there. We pull up to this hotel. And there's this giant wall. There's private security. Apparently this is a thing. Like everybody's got private security. And so he pulls up. We're outside of this wall. And we give him the money. We're undoing, all of our luggage again, Beverly Hillbilly style. And he's like trying to get my cell phone number. I'm like, dude, I'm not giving you my phone number. And so he writes his phone number down and gives it to us. He says, give him a call if we need any more rides. I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, now we have to get inside of this wall. And so there's like, guards, more, private security. Dude's got a German Shepherd. I'm not feeling real confident about this. And so we just walk up to this gate and almost like, if you've seen Jurassic Park, they're like, don't move and the dinosaur can't see you. It's like, if we move as slow as possible, maybe these guys won't stop us from coming in this gate. So somehow, like they're locked in on us. And maybe they could tell that we didn't belong here, and the fact that we didn't belong here in Cairo means we probably belong here at this hotel. So they didn't stop us. So we're just like, sneaking through this little gate, and now we're at the front of the hotel, and it's like airport security all over again. There's like metal detectors. I got to send my bag through and get it x-rayed like no hotel I've ever been at. So we run all our stuff through the x-ray machine. We're getting beep, beep, like, arms are out. We're like, holy smoke. And so we finally get into the lobby, and here's our group. Like, we've been lost in Cairo for hours. And they come up like, is everything okay? Like this, now you've been gone. I'm like, yeah, we're okay. Like, we made it somehow. And they're like, well, tell us what happened. And we told them the whole story. And then the guy that's our contact, he says, wait a second. So if you gave the first taxi driver the money, how did you pay for the second cab? And I was like, well, we just got all the money together that we had, American currency. And this like smile comes across his face. And he goes, how much money did you give him? And I'm like, well, none of us had ever ridden in a taxi before. We don't know what taxis cost. Like, we've watched Friends before, and it just seems like you just pay whatever they tell you to pay. And he said, how much money did you give him? And I'm like, 20 American dollars. And he just starts laughing. He said, you so overpaid. And I'm like, how much did we actually give him? And he said, well, it'd be the equivalent of about a 3-minute cab ride for $120. And we're like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. But you know what? At the end of the day, if 20 American dollars gets me not lost in Cairo, it's worth the money. Kwanzaa, dudes.